Welcome back for another deep dive. This time, we're looking at something pretty different, I think.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's the Voters Party International, and specifically their constitution.
Hmm.
Yeah, so we're not talking like, your average political party platform.
Right.
This thing is like, it lays out their grand vision, like global stuff.
Hmm.
Their organizational structure is
Yeah.
really something, and they've got some economic ideas that are pretty thought-provoking.
Wow, global ambitions, huh?
Yeah, they're not messing around.
So not just like, local elections, they're thinking bigger picture.
Much bigger.
Worldwide democracy, fraternity, equality.
It's right.
Wow.
It's pretty amazing, actually, when you see it all laid out.
Yeah.
They really believe in, like, a citizen-driven world order,
Mm-hmm.
where everyday people are tackling the biggest problems.
That's a big ask.
Yeah, well, they lay out how they want to ensure everyone in the world has access to political and economic opportunities.
So everyone gets a seat at the table.
Yep, exactly. So we're talking issues like violence, poverty, environmental imbalances.
So they want to fix everything.
Well, yeah, I mean, their goal is just political and economic order for everyone everywhere.
Huh.
I mean, it's a very utopian vision, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, it's definitely got that utopian feel, this idea of, bottom-up solutions.
Right.
Crafted by world citizens.
Mm-hmm.
That's really noteworthy.
Yeah.
It suggests, maybe a radical shift in power dynamics
Right.
away from traditional institutions.
Towards something new.
Yeah, more participatory global governance.
Now, here's where things get really interesting.
Okay, lay it on me.
Their entire philosophy is based on the writings of someone named Sri Gandhi.
Sri Gandhi.
Yeah, and they describe him as like a contemporary political reformer.
Okay.
And they really believe his work holds the solutions to like all these problems,
Wow.
current and future.
Hmm.
So have you ever come across his writings?
I haven't, but the way they talk about him makes me kind of curious. Right?
Yeah, he's like their central ideological figure,
Yeah.
maybe even a spiritual or intellectual leader.
Yeah, it makes you wonder, what exactly is he proposing?
Yeah, what's the big idea?
And speaking of ideas, they have some unusual core assumptions.
Okay, like what?
Well, for example, they believe that societies have fixed lifespans like people.
Hmm.
Yeah. They also talk about the transferability of pleasure.
The what?
The transferability of pleasure. So, it can't be created or destroyed. It just moves between people or even species.
Wow, that's pretty heady stuff.
Yeah, it is. It's like, whoa.
Yeah, those are some unique assumptions.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder how they translate into like tangible political goals.
Right.
If pleasure can just be redistributed.
Right.
It raises all sorts of questions about how they envision a fair and equitable society.
Well, they do lay out some concrete objectives.
Okay.
Some are straightforward, increased transparency in government and the market.
Makes sense.
But then there are things like transferring ownership to optimum productive hands. Optimum productive hands?
Yeah.
So who decides what's optimum?
Right.
And how does that transfer even work?
Exactly.
Yeah, that's a crucial question.
It is, and gets to the heart of their economic model.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we need more details.
Yeah.
What do they mean by optimum?
Right.
How do they balance individual rights with collective ownership?
Big questions.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And then they throw around terms like votership and conditional world citizenship, which we'll definitely have to unpack later.
Yeah, those are definitely intriguing.
They're hinting at a very different way of structuring society and global relations.
Especially votership.
Yeah.
Sounds like a key part of their economic platform.
Okay, now get ready for this. Their organizational structure is incredibly intricate.
Okay.
I mean, like layers upon layers from local to global,
Wow.
each with specific roles and responsibilities.
Okay.
Committees for everything you can imagine.
So what?
Executive committees, general assemblies, parliamentary councils, election authority candidate, selection council, judicial council.
Whoa, they thought of everything.
Seriously.
It's very hierarchical.
It is.
Kind of seems at odds with their emphasis on bottom-up governance.
You would think.
But then they have things like 0 members and interim office bearers.
Right.
So maybe there's some flexibility built in.
Yeah, those 0 members are interesting, right?
Yeah.
They can be folks who are critical of the party or just hesitant to formally join.
Hmm.
And interim office bearers seem to be like temporary appointments,
Okay.
just to fill specific needs as they come up.
So they're adaptable.
It's like they built in some adaptability
Yeah.
to accommodate diverse viewpoints, and evolving circumstances.
That's smart, especially with their global ambitions.
Right.
Yeah,
They need to be flexible to navigate all the different political and cultural contexts.
for sure.
Now let's talk about votership.
Okay, finally.
Yeah, because it seems central to their whole platform.
Right.
So essentially it involves regular cash payments
Sure.
from the government to every voter.
Okay.
And it represents their share of something they call collective property rent.
Collective property rent.
Yeah.
So if we connect this back to their goal of economic equality, it seems like a way to redistribute wealth
Yeah.
and empower individuals financially.
Right.
But it does raise some questions.
Oh, yeah.
Like, what exactly constitutes collective property?
Right.
And how would they determine the value of this rent?
It's a big question. They also mentioned drawing inspiration from a similar proposal in the Indian parliament.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So there might be some real-world precedents for this votership idea.
Potentially. It's a bold proposal, though.
Yeah.
With some potentially far-reaching implications.
Yeah, it would be interesting to explore those precedents,
Yeah.
see how they envision this system working globally. I mean, the logistics of implementing something like that would be incredibly complex.
Oh, for sure. All right, let's delve into the nitty-gritty of their membership and finances.
Okay.
They have a different membership types.
Great.
Primary, active, zero, and so on. Each with its own fees and privileges.
Okay.
But what really caught my eye was their approach to fundraising.
Oh, yeah. What's that?
They issue promissory notes for loans from individuals and institutions.
Really?
Yeah.
That's unusual for a political party.
It is.
It's like they're operating more like a financial institution,
Right.
which is intriguing,
Yeah.
but also raises some questions.
Oh, yeah, like about potential conflicts of interest.
Exactly.
And then there's this whole emphasis on scrutinizing membership.
Huh?
Yeah, with the possibility of expulsion for breaking party rules.
So they're serious about their rules.
They're not messing around.
Wow.
Speaking of rules, there's a whole section on disciplinary action,
Okay.
outlining punishable offenses like undermining a candidate or violating their code of conduct. They even have a judicial council to handle disputes,
Wow. A whole court system.
pretty much,
Yeah.
and a range of punishments from suspension to expulsion.
This level of control is interesting. Makes me think about the kind of behavior they're trying to cultivate within their ranks.
Yeah.
Seems like loyalty and strict adherence to party ideology are really important.
Yeah, they emphasize unity, presenting a unified front internally and externally.
So it's like they're building an army.
Yeah, an army of dedicated followers committed to achieving their ambitious goals.
Wow. But before we jump into their global structure, let's look at a few more intriguing concepts.
Okay, what else have you got?
Well, okay, lay it on me. What other surprises are hidden in this constitution?
Oh, they have this duetted weight principle of sovereignty.
Weighted weight.
Yeah, it sounds super complex.
It does.
Another concept from their guiding light, Sri Farhat Gandhi.
Right.
And supposedly it relates to their structure and goals.
Weighted weight translates to monodualism.
Yeah, that's it.
It seems to embrace both unity and diversity, maybe reflecting their aim for a global order that respects individual differences but still strives for a common good.
Right.
It's a fascinating philosophical concept.
Yeah.
Could have profound implications for how they envision governance.
It definitely suggests a more nuanced approach
Yeah.
than just a simple one-size-fits-all model.
Right.
And then there's this vertical separation of power.
Vertical separation of power.
Yeah, it sounds like their take on government structure.
It could be their way of expanding the traditional separation of powers.
Like legislative, executive, and judicial branches.
Right. Instead of just those three, they might be envisioning additional layers,
Huh.
potentially even extending to the global level,
Okay.
which aligns with their idea of a citizen-driven world order
Right.
where power is distributed across multiple levels.
It makes you wonder how those different levels would interact
Yeah,
and balance each other.
good question.
Would it be more efficient? Or could it create, new complexities?
Yeah, more potential for gridlock.
Exactly. And then we can't overlook this other goal of theirs,
There's that.
establishing a Hindu state in Himachal Pradesh, India.
A Hindu state.
Yeah, to test policies based on Hindu principles.
That definitely stands out.
It does.
Seems like they see potential in applying ancient wisdom to modern challenges, but it also raises questions about inclusivity.
Right.
How would they ensure the rights of those who don't adhere to Hindu principles?
Yeah, it highlights the potential tension
Yeah.
between their global aspirations.
And their focus on specific cultural or religious traditions.
Exactly.
It would be interesting to see how they address this tension, you know,
Yeah.
in their policies and interactions with diverse communities.
Okay, moving on, we can't forget about the policy director.
The policy director.
Yeah, they're like the mentor
Okay.
or guiding figure for the entire party.
Makes sense given their complex structure.
Right.
But how is the policy director chosen?
Well, that's the interesting part.
Okay.
They're elected by the 0 members.
The 0 members.
Yeah, remember those folks who might be critical of the party or hesitant to fully commit.
Right, right.
It's almost like they're seeking guidance from outside the core membership, like acknowledging the value of diverse perspectives.
So they don't want to become an echo chamber.
Exactly.
Interesting.
And the policy director has some serious power.
Oh, yeah. Like what?
They can supervise and criticize the Central Executive Committee
Wow.
and even call for the president's resignation in extreme cases.
That's a remarkable amount of influence.
It is.
For someone elected by those who aren't even fully on board with the party's ideology.
Right. It suggests they really value external input
Yeah.
and see the policy director as like a moral compass, making sure the party stays true to its core values.
Even as it evolves.
Exactly. So we've covered a lot of ground. This Voters Party International, they're aiming for a global, citizen-driven world order rooted in the philosophy of Srivart Gandhi.
Yeah.
They have an intricate structure,
For sure.
unique economic ideas like votership, and some intriguing concepts like dwedded weight and vertical separation of power.
And let's not forget their emphasis on discipline and control.
Right.
And their goal of establishing a Hindu state in Himachal Pradesh.
It's a lot to take in.
It is. They present a fascinating mix of idealism and pragmatism, traditional values and radical ideas.
It's like they've created a blueprint for a completely different kind of society.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder if such a complex and ambitious system could actually work in the real world.
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
It is.
It's one thing to design a system on paper,
Right.
but quite another to actually implement it globally.
Yeah,
It would be fascinating to explore the potential challenges and unintended consequences.
absolutely. What stands out to you as the most surprising or thought-provoking element we've uncovered so far?
For me, it's the tension between their global ambitions and their focus on specific cultural or religious principles, like their goal of a Hindu state.
Yeah.
It raises questions about how they would navigate the complexities of a diverse world while still adhering to a particular set of values.
I agree, it's a puzzle.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder how they would reconcile those seemingly conflicting aspects of their vision.
For sure.
Before we dive into that rabbit hole,
Right.
let's zoom in on their multi-layered organizational structure,
Okay.
especially those levels focused on global affairs.
Let's do it. I'm eager to unpack how they envision managing issues that transcend national borders. Let's do it. I'm eager to unpack how they envision managing issues that transcend national borders.
Okay, so we've talked about their global ambitions.
Right.
Right. But how did they actually plan to manage things on that scale?
Right.
Like their organizational structure is set up in a way that mirrors their vision for global governance.
Yeah, you see these provincial or state-level committees, a country-level committee, and then these Indian units for homeland, hemi-national, national-level affairs.
Wow.
It's like they're creating this parallel system
Yeah.
that operates alongside existing nation-states.
It's a lot to wrap your head around.
It is.
It seems like the homeland level focuses on issues that require cooperation between neighboring countries.
Makes sense.
Yeah, but then you have hemi-national dealing with an entire hemisphere,
Wow.
like the eastern or western half of the world.
That's huge.
It's massive.
Yeah. Huge area of responsibility.
It is. And then at the very top, you have the national level,
Okay.
which tackles global issues requiring worldwide collaboration.
So they're not thinking small.
No, they are not. It's like they're trying to build a global network
Yeah.
capable of addressing everything.
From local disputes to international crises.
Exactly. And they even have specific working lists for each level.
Oh, really?
Yeah, outlining their priorities. So, for example, the Indian Unit for Homeland Level Affairs would be responsible for things like citizenship and travel regulations within a specific region. Imagine trying to create a unified system for something as complex as citizenship across multiple countries.
Yeah, that's incredibly ambitious.
It is.
And it highlights their goal of fostering, a greater sense of global citizenship.
Right.
It makes you wonder if existing national boundaries would eventually become less important in their vision.
It really does. And it's not just about structure. They've thought about the finances, too.
Okay.
They have a detailed schedule for membership fees and how those funds are distributed across the different levels. They even have provisions for loans and promissory notes.
That level of financial planning is impressive.
Yeah.
It speaks to their commitment to building a sustainable organization.
It does.
They're not just relying on donations or government funding.
Right.
They're creating a system that can potentially generate its own revenue.
But remember, their focus on discipline.
Yeah.
It extends to all levels of the organization.
Okay.
Their constitution outlines specific punishments for various offenses.
So like a strict code of conduct for everyone involved.
Exactly.
That makes sense considering their goal of creating a global movement.
Right.
Yeah.
They need to ensure consistency and accountability across such a vast network.
But it does raise questions, though.
Yeah, like what?
How much dissent would they tolerate?
Right. Would there be room for differing opinions?
Yeah, within such a structured and rule-bound system.
That's a great question. It brings us back to that tension we talked about earlier.
Yeah.
Balancing unity and control with individual expression and freedom.
Yeah,
So we've explored this party's constitution,
we have.
their utopian vision, their intricate structure, their unique economic ideas, their emphasis on discipline.
This Voters Party International,
Yeah.
it's clearly more than just a political platform.
Sure.
It's a blueprint for a new world order.
Yeah, driven by this belief in global democracy and economic equality.
Yeah.
Whether or not you agree with their vision,
Right.
you have to admire their ambition
Yeah.
and the level of detail they've put into outlining their plans.
It's been a fascinating deep dive.
It really has.
This party has given us a lot to think about.
Sure. What stands out to you as the most surprising or thought-provoking element?
Honestly, it's the sheer scale of their ambition.
Right.
They're not just trying to win an election. They're trying to change the world.
They believe they have the answers to humanity's biggest problems.
Yeah, and they've created a detailed roadmap to get there.
It's a bold vision.
It is. It raises a question for our listeners to consider.
Okay, I like it.
Could such an elaborate and idealistic system actually work in the real world?
That's the question, isn't it?
Would it lead to a more just and equitable global society?
Right. Or would it create new challenges and unforeseen consequences?
Lots to think about.
Definitely. If you're curious to learn more about the philosophy behind this party, I encourage you to explore the writings of Shri Bharat Gandhi.
Yeah, good idea.
It's clear his ideas are the driving force behind this movement, and this deep dive has just scratched the surface.